All right, today we're going to be looking at my pick for the 10 best games of early 2024. I am recording this on March 9th. So, there's much time left in the year, and by the time this comes out, which will be sometime in April, these probably will no longer be the best 10 games. Also, I tended to pick games that I thought had interesting move orders or appealed to me in some way. I'm sure there are great games I missed. I also mostly have records of official games, so some secondary games. I did check an Akiyama Midas 2 minute match. There's one game that's not from an official event here, but most of the games are going to be veering towards official events. I also tried to pick only games that were played perfectly by the winning player, not necessarily meaning they found the absolute most pressure at every moment, but meaning that they never played a losing move when there was a tie available or a tying move when there was a win available. There is one exception to that, and it is from a game I played that I snuck in here. But I also think it's one of the most interesting games I've played ever, and I think deserved a spot. Also, compliments to all players who were here, but also the players who lost these games. I am not intending to say anything negative towards them. I think to have such good games, you need players that put up real resistance. And so the losers of these games tend to be very good players as well. We will, in fact, see a streak of, I think, 4 games in a row that Tezuka lost. And this is not to slight Tezuka, who is obviously one of the best players on the site. It is that to play successfully against Tezuka required a really high level of play, and those ended up being some of my favorite games. So this game I'm not going to talk too much about because I've talked about it before. We're going to focus a little more on games that I have talked about less in the past. But this was from round one of Ultimisia, and what I really liked here was, first of all, how Yevon picked a center starter when he had numbers that could not be beat, right? His sevens are potentially, if they're aligned right, unbeatable numbers. And after Addy plays next to his starter, he immediately plays what I call the center attack, where you go next to the action, where there's going to be fewer out-facing directions, right? Where there's already, because you're next to the action, there's already sides of your card that are blocked, and you can grab early safety, and they don't have safety in response because the 2-6-2-6 and 4-3-4-7 are too strong. This is already an essentially lost position for Addy. The only save is 5-1, 5-6, and 9, I believe, which would be a ridiculous move to find in an actual game. Addy did not find it, but this was not the end of Yevon's really good play and really good use of the center attack, because we also now have to choose between moves like 6-2, 6-2, and 1, or 2-6, 2-6, and 9. And the real question is, which of those moves will leave 4-3-4-7 as the superior sweeper? And Yevon figures out the numbers just perfectly here and plays 2-6-2-6 and 9. Now 6-6-3-2 and 6 is covered, and 5-1-5-6 clearly gives more resistance than 3-2-6-6 does. So Addy plays 5-1-5-6, and now we see how well Yevon has calculated this. He plays 6-2-6-2 and 1, and 4-3-4-7 is a phenomenal sweeper here. It now has a plus due to that 5 up against that 2 to the right. So 3-2-6-6 and 2 is now plussed. 6-6-3-2 and 2 is plus walled. 6-6-3-2 and 3 is simply taken, and 3-2-6-6 and 3 is plussed. Really well figured out. And the only win was the move in 9. And I just really liked this use of the center attack. We're going to focus on the winning side of each game, not what the defender perhaps could have done differently. And Addy gives up the 9-1, which is perfect sportsmanship, and I always approve. Mad disrespect to everyone here who lost and did not give up the 9-1. All right, on to game 2. We have Midas versus Delial in Ultimisia round 2. This was... Midas had a whole series of games in recent events where he tore apart center starters. He completely wrecked them. So I thought this would be a nice one to follow up the last game with. And here he did it in what was the arguably biggest upset of the tournament, defeating reigning TTAC champion, reigning site champion, Delial, who started in 5. And the start of this game is going to look kind of similar. But the difference here is Midas against center starters, and it's harder to notice here, but does apply here, was fantastic at meeting center starters with side replies that dictate the game will either be up down or left right, whichever Midas has bigger advantage in. And this was not the cleanest example of that, but it was the kind of most uh, fantastic victory. He plays in 4, and you might think, but these hands are very similar. How can he have a side to side advantage? But the 7-5 4-5s play off quite well against the 5-6 5-6. And also the 5s to the side are just a little difficult to ever take, right? If a same with Deli's 5s are not lined up, then the 6-7 6-3s are clunky capturers. They have a weak number facing out. The 5-5 7-4s can only capture if it's perfectly aligned. It's going to be clunky going side to side, and Midas will have a better time. I think this was a fantastic decision. Delial goes in 3, and Midas is winning already here. But he needs to find a precise move, and I think there are 2 very appealing moves. Arguably 3, you could say 4-5 7-5 in 6 is nice, grabbing safety. But 6-3 6-7 and 6 grab safety while capturing things that you don't mind capturing. There's not really combo potential. But there's also 6-7 6-3 and 7, and that is also safe. But I think at a fundamental level, and Midas chooses perfectly here, if you play in 6, there is a good chance you will also get 7. If you play in 7, you are probably giving up your chance for 6. And I think Midas makes the very precise choice to go in 6. Deli, I think, finds the most difficult move to beat here in 5-5 7-4. There is only one win for Midas in this position. The 6-7 6-3 and 6-3 6-7 are really good going side to side. But Midas's only win, which he plays, is 7-5 4-5 in 9. And the point is, he has 2 different cards that can land in 2 after he goes in 8. And so whichever card Deli keeps, Midas can dodge a combo by putting the right card in 2. But the reason he had to play exactly 7-5 4-5 and 9 is whichever of those cards he plays in 2 has to be able to recapture 5. So for instance, if Deli plays 6-7 6-3 and 8, then Midas cannot play 6-7 6-3 and 2, he will be samed. He must play 4-5 7-5 and 2. And 7-5 4-5 and 2 would not have worked because it does not reflip 5 in lines where that is needed. Deli goes for 6-3 6-7 and 8, which now he can meet 4-5 7-5 and 2, but he can no longer meet 6-7 6-3 and 2. Or he can take it, but he doesn't get the extra flip, and Midas pulls off the win. I think Midas has just shown a tremendous ability to meet center starters with side replies. And one thing you'll notice in this game, another thing to differentiate it from the prior, is Deli did not have safety in 1 or 7, right? Deli could not execute the center attack here because the 7-5 4-5 and 4-5 7-5 do a nice job of controlling those sideways 7s. So really nice win for Midas, and yeah. I should say, a lot of the great games, like, you watch the best players play, and they don't always do something like weird and spectacular. Most of the time, they play in the normal squares, but they do so a little more precisely with the calculations worked out a little better, and that aggregates over time to being significantly better players. So I tried to highlight here games that did something interesting or odd or creative, something you don't see as much. But often the best games are going to be the very normal ones, right? The ones where they just did everything right and the game looks absolutely conventional. And I've stressed this time after time, playing normal triple triad is a huge strength. So here I wanted to focus on kind of creative fun games, but there's a case that the best games are not going to be shown here. So this was from the Ultimisia finals, and I just thought the move Seto made here and how quickly and comfortably and easily he won the game after was just remarkable. Because the move 7-3-2-5, and it was clear from interviewing him after this wasn't a particular like standout moment or game for him in his run, but it really looked it to me because I have this really strongly held principle that I think makes a lot of sense, which is on first turn, a weak corner makes sense, right? because you're going to have last turn. You want things that are easy to recapture. There are so many closed games where, like, say you get an X formation and everything number facing out is weak. Everyone did weak corners. First turn just wins. Wherever first turn lands their last card, they're going to sweep things. You see people play like level 1 through 10 randoms, and I've taken some of the games, and some of the people that put them up clearly don't understand that they use their lower levels first, which makes sense, but they don't understand that at some point they have to play something you can't take, and you just win because you get an X formation where every number is weak and you have first turn, so you just take everything on the final turn, and it's fantastic. So in general, first turn loves seeing weak numbers. Second turn often needs to challenge, needs to play stronger numbers, harder stuff to take. And so when Seto plays a weak corner and just immediately wins the game off it, I think it's remarkable, and it's one of those moves that I have to better understand and look at, because there is a clear principled reason that you shouldn't do stuff like this. And yet it was very, very strong here. So one thing I think that helps it is an adjacent corner against a weak corner. And in adjacent corners, often the best move is to take the in-between square with a high number facing out. But with two weak corners, this becomes a much less appealing option because Seto has infinite pleasing options for the L, right? He can play in 2, he can play in 8, and he can use almost any card, in fact probably can use, or at least consider, any card in either square. He's going to have a ton of options against 4. So it specifically makes some sense against Tezuka's weak corner himself. And thus it made a lot of sense that Tezuka played elsewhere, right? Tezuka left those squares open. He played a third weak corner, something that he could attack, first turn, wants things that are weak on last turn. But it turns out that Tezuka's hand's just a little clunky, and Seto has organized the game exactly right. He has gotten rid of the weakest card in his hand, but he has also, how to say this right? Yeah, I guess I don't have the ways to say this game right, which is a sign that I think it's a really important game to think about and look at. But he also directed the game very usefully, right? Tezuka's A259 faces the action well, but all of Tezuka's cards were immediately made clunky when Seto played in 1, right? This was a move that if you kind of talk to your opponent's cards, and we go back a turn, 7864 wants to go to the right. 5672 wants to go to the right, a little more down, but generally to the right. 1987 wants to go down, a little more to the right, but down. A259 is the only card that is at all happy to see a move in 1. And that leaves Tezuka's hand really, really clunky. And Seto immediately takes advantage of this with a move in 2, where suddenly 1987 is just never going to find use. 5672 can't land in 4 because it's comboed from 5. A259 also loses in 4 to the same move, 4895 and 5, which is just such a beast. And, once A259 is out of Tezuka's hand, he has no play at all. This is an incredibly difficult position. To Tezuka's credit, he spent a lot of his time considering I think, clearest tie. I think there might be 2 ties, but 1987 and 8, which is a very hard move to consider, given that, for instance, it's comboed by 7, 8, 4, 5, and 9. So just a very difficult move to find. He ends up not able to pull the trigger on that, and Seto wins pretty comfortably. I do kind of like how Tezuka finished the game, setting up A259, his one card that had use, to have potential combos in every square, and a nice way of showing that his cards interacted with each other effectively, just not in a way that was actually helpful in this specific game. But yeah, I thought this 7-3-2-5 in 1 move was remarkable because it won a tournament finals game basically immediately, and yet it is so distinct from all my kind of principles of how you should be thinking about second turn. But it played really well against Tezuka's cards, right? It made so many of them clunky and awkward immediately. And I think there's a real case that you see a weak corner, you can just play a weak corner adjacent to it, direct the game a little, but they can't make that standard move in the in-between square because you're going to have so many L options, and they're going to be forced into something more complex in the distance. And when they play something more complex in the distance, there's a ton of room for either of you to outplay each other, right? And so it's going to give these huge winning chances, and it is not going to play out like the X's I was talking about earlier, where the first turn player can just sweep the second turn player's cards at the end of the game. It's going to work out much more effectively. So I think what we saw here was not, say, meeting a weak corner with an opposite weak corner, which I am still very skeptical of. It is meeting a weak corner with an adjacent weak corner and really showing how powerful that can be. We're going to pause because I put pasta on, or put water on to boil, and we've been going 15 minutes, so it's probably boiling by now. And then we're going to come back with the other positions, the other 7 or so positions. Okay, let's move on to game 4. This is myself versus Tezuka. I included 2 games of mine, probably bad form, but I thought they were really interesting. This game was basically hopeless from Tezuka's side, given the hands, and given that plus wall isn't on, which meant my 2 8/8 corners were very likely to be hard for him to set up against. And this was already just going to be a nightmare of a position. He can't take in 6, just a horrible position. This is, going to be the start of a series of games we show, or the second of a series of games we show where Tezuka loses. But this is one where there was very, very little he could do. That said, I really liked how I played it, so he goes for the adjacent corner. Specifically, that sets up 4, 7, 2, 8, and 8. And if I block 8, he can at least set up L's in 4, right? He has some way to try to attack the position. And like I said earlier with the Seto game, usually the reply to an adjacent corner, usually the best reply, is to take the in-between square. That's less the case if me blocking 8 gives them like combo potential in 6, but it's often the case, and I did so, which was the correct and winning move. But I think the reason this is an interesting game is because there's only one win for red here, and it's not obvious. He has blocked 4 in a way that sets up a serious threat in 5. And if I block 5 myself, he gets access to 1, right? If I play something like 6, 7, 2, 7, and 5, or 3, 5, 7, 7, and 5, he has options like 5, 8, 7, 3, and 1, and suddenly he's built out this wall on the left side that should be enough to get him a tie. And so this was a position that I think it wasn't at all obvious how to play for an advantage. You can consider moves like 6. Sometimes you go 6, it kind of forces them to go 5, and then you can attack nicely the remaining cards. Sometimes you can force the action that way. That didn't seem to be the case here. What I needed to do was find a reaction to 5. I didn't think blocking 5 did it, and so I need to set it up so if he goes 5, I have some response that is equally powerful, which led me to the winning move, 6, 7, 2, 7 in 2. This is the only winning move, and my point is now that 3, 5, 7, 7 has both 1 and 5, but really 1 is the important part here. He can never access 5 if 1 is left open, because 3, 5, 7, 7, and 1 hits so hard. I was pretty sure 6 was a tie for him, I think with 4, 7, 2, 8. But I totally missed that 3, 5, 7, 7, and 5 now has an extra plus given to it. So that didn't work at all, and he had correctly evaluated this, and I had not. He played a different card in 6. If he goes in 1, I go in 5, and my 7, 1, 8, 4 sweeps the right. If he goes in 5, I go in 1, and my 7, 1, 8, 4 sweeps the right. If he goes in 3 or 6, I play 7, 1, 8, 4 in 3 or 6, the other one, and 3, 5, 7, 7 sweeps the remaining cards. So it's a very kind of simple plan for how to win this position. But I thought, the reason I thought 4, 7, 2, 8, I think that was the one I identified. Nope, now I have no idea what I was thinking. But he goes 6, which was, as I said, also what I thought was the best square. But I can follow the plan, play in 3, and leave these paired squares of 1 and 5 for my 3, 5, 7, 7. I think in general, calculations are easiest when you can identify paired squares. Like, if they go 1, I go 5. If they go 5, I go 1. And 3, 5, 7, 7 covers both of those squares. 7, 1, 8, 4 covers both squares on the right. That's a kind of easy shortcut here to calculation. And I get the win here. All right, on to game 5. This is from Chat Tournament or Weekly Open 53, round 1. This is Akiyama versus Tezuka. And what I really liked about this game, so first Akiyama starts with a weak corner, specifically using one of his 2 super redundant cards, and Tezuka plays safely next to it. And what I like about this position is it is already very dangerous for Akiyama. He has 3 ties here, I think. I think it said 3 ties. I think the most natural of them is 4, 9, 7, 7, and 6. Blocking 6, right? Blocking their avenue to attack your card, and setting up some threat against their card in 5. That wouldn't necessarily lead to an easy game. There's a whole bunch of potentially scary looking options there. Important to note, plus wall isn't on. So if your 9-8-6-2 lands in 5, it doesn't necessarily get destroyed by like 8-8-9-1 and 2. But, complex lines there. But Akiyama goes full on aggression and goes for the big setup, where 7-5-5A now has both 5 and 7. And now what made this game fun was Tezuka also goes full on aggression and plays to set up his cards and plays 2-9-A3 in 2. And now A8-5-4 has the same in 5, right? As well as a plus in 7. So Akiyama has set up one card to have both 5 and 7, and Tezuka goes, I can set up one card to have both 5 and 7 as well. The thing is, first turn is going to get last turn. So if those 2 are left open, it will favor Akiyama, and Tezuka has to get rid of them at some point. And that's why I kind of think often this kind of, if everything is set up for both people, first turn will win. And so a lot of really nice moves that are found, how do I block the squares that they need? And this is a move saying we're both going to have maximum combo potential, but maximum combo potential favors first turn. Now, if we look at Akiyama's hand, he has 7-5-5A for 5 and 7. 4-9-7-7, 9-8-6-2, and 7-5-5A all have combo play in 1, right? And especially his 7-5-5A has 3 squares that have combo play. So what he does is he leaves them all open. He's going to go in either 3 or 6. Which is more useful of 3 or 6? Well, 6 has the potential to lock in 9, and it has the potential to set up even more combo action. And he finds the only win walking into a combo with 9-8-6-2 and 6. Walking into 2-6-9-9 and 3, comboing, but just having calculated it super well and knowing basically if 5 and 7 are left open at the end, I have a great shot. Tezuka does take the combo in 3, and again, there's only one win, but you'll notice, if Akiyama leaves 5 and 7 open, Tezuka can play 5 with 8-8-9-1, and 7 won't combo anything extra. So Akiyama actually needs to have seen a different move to win this position, but he has seen at distance. 5 works, because 7-5-5A sweeps also in 1 and 7, and Akiyama gets the win. Just a really nice win. 6 was a really well-calculated move. It was the only winning option. 4 was a really fun attacking move, but also this game wouldn't have been great if Tezuka hadn't played in 2 and really gone for it, which I think was taking on too much risk, but also that's how you win some games, right? So, this might be my favorite of the game so far, just for a chaotic mess that you could spend a long time calculating if you wanted to. Alright, next up we have Seto Tezuka. This is from Chat Tournament 54, round 1. Seto goes first, and he plays 3-A-6-7 and 2, a kind of synergy side move where 4-7-9-7 or potentially 5-7-8-7 play off it well. This is not the kind of move I make, right? I would be like, okay, 3-A-6-7 wants to go down right, 7-9-7-3 wants to go right, 4-7-9-7 and 5-7-8-7 want to go down, 8-5-4A wants to go up left, but that's the only card that wants to be going up. I should, stick something in the bottom right. But Seto looks for synergies and is going to play them really well this game. Tezuka goes, okay, that gives me safety in 1. I'm happy for the game to face upward. I have a lot more up power than you do. And I have down power facing away from the action. Sure, let's take safety. And we get a position where there's the question of how should Tezuka attack the upper row? Should he go for an L and 4? And okay, the answer to that is yes, that would have been the best option. Or can he attack immediately and go for serious advantage by playing in 5 or 6? Now we start looking at the options and we notice if 9864 lands in 6, it is comboed really horribly by 854A and 9, and I think that loses immediately. But it is also comboed by 7973 and 5, so that one seems too dangerous. If we notice 9486 and 6, this is a better option. This is definitely a better option. But 854A and 8, we envision 9486 here, 854A and 8 sets up pluses in both directions. It is with distinct cards, but that's going to be a pretty dangerous position. I think that one is a tie, but clearly dangerous. And then there's options in 5. If you put 9486 in 5, I'm forgetting what happens there, or not finding it now. There's something interesting there. Huh. I don't think that one works. I think it loses, but I'm not immediately seeing why. Tezuka ends up going for 9864 and 5, which is an incredibly risky move. It is vulnerable to 854A and 8. It is vulnerable to 7973 and 4. But you have counterplay against both. 7973 and 4 loses for Seto. You have incredible moves. You can play either 28A5 or 56A6 and 8. 8. Because 9486 is a combo in 6, and if they play 7973 and 4, it has a combo in 7. And the only counterplay is if 854A and 8 combos back. So after 7973 and 4, you block their combo square in 8, and you will win in 6 or 7, whichever of them you get. Really sneaky line. 854A and 8 actually does win, but 9486 and 6 looks like a really good reply, so let's pretend for the moment it doesn't. I think Seto here plays the prettier of the two wins. 8 does work, but oh, I ruined the move ahead. Okay. He plays 4797 in 9, setting up 7973 to have both 4 and 6, and 854A to have 8. And at this point, there is no defense against all the combo potential, and the combo chains are too long. The only square that Tezuka has counterplay is 6. That's the only square he has a combo. So he leaves open 6, but this is just everything is capitulation. Seto takes 6, removing Tezuka's combo square, and Tezuka gives him the 9-1, as is honorable and correct. Tezuka and Addy are our two most honorable players, I believe the only ones in this set of game to lose 9-1. But I just really liked playing on the diagonal here, setting up the combo potential. And I also thought this line was really fun, where this is a win, because 9486 is just so good in 6 and 7. So neat tactical game. And one of those games where, like, you get this line at the top with weak numbers facing out, and often there's moves in, like, 4 or 6, and those are usually the safer moves, but moves in 5 can just win. But they can also be so susceptible to these diagonal setups and really fun domination of combos at the end, and that's what we got here. All right, Chat Tournament 54 Finals. This is yet another game from Seto. This is the What the F game. Midas starts in 4, standard defensive side starter, 4-4-2-5, ready to recapture in 1 and 7. Seto plays 6-2-3-4 and 6 for reasons that are still quite confusing to me. It does create potential to play in 5, but on the other hand, there's no recapture in 3. He now does not even have a 4 to the left, so Midas has multiple safeguards he can play over on the left. I don't really understand this one. We'll move past it. Midas very reasonably plays safely in 1. And now we have a, I think, very dangerous position for Seto. I sort of concluded while watching this he should probably play 7, and that's what he did, but this looks really bad, and specifically, it looks really bad because of 4-4-2-5 in 8, when 7222 has this plus in 5, 5 is completely dead for Seto and amazing for Midas. And if Seto tries to block 5, then Midas is ready to play like 4-4 or even 7222 in 9 because Midas can't actually capture 5 and have 2-3-5-5 to sweep the top. So Midas makes this move and is sure he has won the game. And I, watching, think he's probably won, though I find a move I thought was a tie, but I was wrong, because when Seto plays it, it becomes apparent Seto has actually won this game. This was a remarkable, not quite turnaround, because Seto was not actually lost, but a very difficult position that somehow he pulls out a win from, just really deranged. And the key point here is if 7 is one of 2-3-5-5 or 7-2-2-2 will be dead on final turn. So if 7-2-2-2 goes in 5, well, that actually doesn't flip all that much, and Seto can go 3 with 6-4-3-2. Notice he's set up 6-4-3-2 and 3, and 2-3-5-5 will be dead in 9. And kind of every line something is dead, and the most remarkable of these lines is the one that was played. Midas goes in 9, Seto takes the plus in 3, and 2-3-5-5 captures nothing on the final turn. Just a really surprising and incredible win from Seto. Alright, then we got an open trade game. This is Seto versus Delial. Seto went first, he goes in the corner. I believe every game so far we've talked about I have covered in a video. There will only be one that I haven't covered in a video already, apologies, but you know, I did check other games. And Deli plays this really curious move. We can kind of be reminded of Seto's starter a couple games ago against Tezuka, where he played a move in 2, 3-7-6-A, which just had synergy with 4-7-9-7. And Deli kind of does a similar thing with 9-2-6-A, where just 9-5-9-5 has nice synergies with it. And he also makes the game up-down. And it is not super obvious looking at these hands that Deli wants an up-down game versus this Seto hand. But we're going to see that 5-A-7-6 get in trouble. We're going to see that 8-7-4-9 get in trouble. And Deli is really going to benefit from the up-down nature of the game. He's going to end up sweeping above and below cards in a really impressive, nicely worked out way. I think Seto does the like kind of the correct standard thing you do here. He takes safety in 1, and Deli in reply takes safety in 3, but now it gets really dangerous really quickly. It's really hard for Seto to play in 4. Deli always has safety in 7. It's hard for Seto to attack immediately, because if he goes in 5, he gives up 6 forever. I do think maybe 9-5-8-7 and 5 is a tie. I'm not sure. But, like, very dangerous to try to approach those cards. And so basically you're left with a position where it's really difficult to attack the card in 2, but it's really easy for Deli to attack the card in 9. And it's hard to find a move. Seto goes in 6, which I think is what I had thought he should do as well. And I had not seen why this didn't work, but Deli had. Now, in this kind of structure, what's the most natural thing to do? The most natural thing to do is to block 5, right? You play like 8-A-7-2 and 5, you go up 6-4. But Seto can play 5-A-7-6 in 4, and his 8-7-4-9 sweep side to side. There might be other things that work, but that looks like it works. So 5 doesn't quite work. Now, you could also go in 5 with like 4-6-A-8 and try to have high power facing out, but that doesn't seem to work for, I think, like the same reasons. So what's the next most likely square to work? It's 8, right? It's the other square which attacks something. And we don't have to go through every line here. You can figure it out yourself if you want. But I think the hardest square to find a move in here is 4, locking in the opponent's card in 1 for them. And that's exactly where Deli goes. He goes in 4, and his last 2 cards work beautifully together. First of all, if we look at the previous position, he really would love to land 4-6-A8 and 5 if it could just take the card in 6, but because it can't, it's not good enough. Also, whenever Deli goes in 5, Seto's reply is in 4. So Deli is both blocking the square that Seto wants to go if Deli goes 5, but he is also creating a plus in 5 such that 4-6-A8 is now a humongous threat there. So if now Seto blocks 5, and you notice he gave up a plus to Seto in 5, with 5-A-7-6, Deli has the combo from below it with either of his 2 cards, and he should pick 4-6-A8, so it's not captured back, but either one will combo through there. If Seto takes the other plus in 5 with 8-7-4-9, Deli has the same wall in 8, and that will be enough to win. If Seto goes in 8, Deli can go in 5. He has made 7 a dead square for Seto. Seto blocks 7, and specifically, Seto blocks 7 in a way where he keeps 5-A-7-6. He still controls 4-6-A-8 and 5, but Deli has 2 cards that can go in 5, and the other's enough to get the win. I really like this game. I think the move in 2, Deli said when this video came out he had forgotten about the move in 2 and really liked that. I think his reply to the starter in 2 was very creative and fun. And, you know, it's only 4 moves left, so you should find it if you're a top player, but, like, Deli's move in 4 is just about the last thing you check. But really logical once you notice it. Alright, we're down to, I think, 2 games left. This is the only game we're going to look at where the winning player made a mistake, because I blundered here. I still think this game is awesome and might be my favorite game of the time period, though I am biased because I played it. You can say, no, this game was terrible, shame on you after. But Addy played 7-3, 7-A, and 9, and I could find nothing against this move. I was miserable here. I have no captures in 8. Both my captures in 6 are comboed back, and not only are they comboed back, they're both with the 7 up comboed back by the same card, 7-6-9-6, so he only has to keep that card to dominate me. I also noticed as the board filled up, it was really likely 7-6-9-6 would dominate me on the left, right? If my 7-8-9-5 and 7-6-9-6 and 7-6-5-A are against that, and you just look at the left row, 7-6-9-6 can take and often combo any card in my hand from below on the left, or on the right for that matter. And from above, it can also combo any of 7-8-9-5, 7-6-9-6, or 7-6-5-A. That just seems so unpleasant. A5-A1 sweeps me in a lot of lines. And his final 2 cards are 2 corners that also are often really effective versus my hand. I don't have any setups in 5. I could not get anything to click here. And eventually I settled for, I don't think this is good, but at least it is safe, Squall in 6. Which you'll notice leaves me with way too many 7s facing up. I am going to get dominated later. I also, you may have noticed, this card is not safe because I am a moron, and A5-A1 can take from 3. That said, after this move, I thought I played brilliant, and I'm really proud of this game, but this was a horrendous move where nothing clicked in my head. He should probably reply something like 3-6-8-A and 8, setting up a same in 5, and that way he attacks Squall from both sides. He can also just play in 3 immediately, taking Squall, but he went really ambitious, and this made the game complicated and interesting. He played 3-6-8-A and 2, and at this point I have realized he can take Squall, and now I am calculating the game properly. The problem is, any card I put in 3, he can now take a plus in 5 with 7-6-9-6, or potentially in 1, and combo through if I have, well, so he can play in 5. Now, sometimes I can combo back in 1. So my first idea was I play something like 7-8-9-5 and 3, so that if he plays 7-6-9-6 and 5, I can play 7-6-9-6 in 1. But he also has A9-3-5, and he can also block other squares. Now I'm not seeing all the lines, but that didn't work out. I can't go 3. 3 gets comboed too brutally. And it just comes down to, I think, it turns out there's like a tie in 7. Okay, I didn't consider that at all. But 3 and 5 are these paired squares, and sometimes 1 is relevant too. And if we look at my hand, I have not really much play in 3, but I can't go there immediately because I'm weak to Squall. I have some play in 5, and I have some play in 1, but his play is more important, and he has last turn. So I really need to get rid of his play. And so I really honed in on I have to play in 1 or 5, eventually. It took me a while to get there. 1 didn't seem as useful to me because I didn't see what I was doing with my move in 1. So I ended up playing in 5 here, which is a pretty obscure square to play in. And so I was pretty proud of finding this. And my point in 5 is I have created this counter threat in 8, right? Now, he has that threat too, but it's less useful for him because when he goes 8, he only flips 5. But when I go 8, I flip 9, which potentially can flip 6 back. So if he, for instance, plays A5, A1, and 3, I can hit him in 8 or potentially 1, right? I have options between them. So I've created this counter threat, and if he blocks 8, then I have time to block 3. Then maybe I should play 7 first. Complicated stuff. And he goes again for maximum playing on the diagonal complications. He plays A9, 3, 5, and 7, setting up A5, A1, now has 3 and 4, and 7, 6, 9, 6 now has 1 and 8, which is an odd set of paired squares, but really deadly here. My first instinct here, and my plan, because I didn't think this was a scary move, was 7, 6, 5, A, and 8. And I thought, okay, that grabs Len, and we're good. If he plays A5, A1 in 3, yep, he combos through. 3 combos 6, combos 5, combos 8. But I can play 9, 9, 6, 4, and 4, and that's my one card with a number up that 7, 6, 9, 6 doesn't dominate. I combo back, I win. 8 is good because he doesn't have 3. But he is set up 4 as well. And we know A5, A1 is 3 and 4. So of course, if I go 8, he should go 1 and leave open the combo squares of 3 and 4. And in fact, I eventually spotted, if I go 7, 6, 5, A, and 8, he goes 7, 6, 9, 6, 1, and A5, A1 destroys me on the final combos. Much like the Seto Tezuka game we looked at, the combo chains are just too long. And if he can set up to have a square for 2 cards, he wins. Therefore, he has A5, A1 for 3 and 4, and those combo chains are going to be long. And he has 7, 6, 9, 6 for 1 and 8, and those combo chains are not nearly as dangerous, right? 1 potentially only flips 2, but if I haven't touched 2, that's not a serious combo. 8 flips 5, but nothing I have is weak to 5. So I need to play in 1 or 8, in 3 or 4, so that his move leaving both combos open will leave 1 and 8 open, which are much less dangerous. I need to remove 1 of 3 or 4 from the game. And I eventually found, and I didn't realize it was winning, I thought it was only a tie, 9, 9, 6, 4, and 4. But then after looking at it for a bit, it becomes clear this is not just the best and only move, but this is actually a win. If he goes 7, 6, 9, 6 in 1, well, A5, A1 is good in 3, but not good in 8. I can go in 3 with 7, 6, 5A, that combos 2, which flips 1, and I win. If he goes A5, A1 in 1, well, 7, 6, 9, 6 is good in 8, but not good in 3, I can play Hope in 8, and suddenly it lands in 3 and does nothing. And you can kind of do that for each potential move. He eventually goes 8, A5, A1, good in 3, not good in 1, I get the win. I guess the most logical move you could say is A5, A1 in 3, because 7, 6, 9, 6 is good moves in 1 and 8, but it's really doing nothing in 1. It's not actually good there because I never flipped 2, and that would also be a win for me. So I thought this was just such a strange game, and I was really proud of myself for finding 5, and then with very little time left, this took me a while, and I didn't really realize it was a win till later, but playing 5 and 4 on consecutive moves I thought were fantastic moves. We are on to what I believe is the 10th, is the 10th and final game. And this is the only game I haven't shown on a video before. This is Delial vs. Vid in Kefka round 1. Deli starts with a weak corner. I think this makes sense. If you look at his hand, he has 3-3, 4-7 for 3, 5-7, 3-3 for 7, 6-3, 6-3 is neutral, and then 4-5, 5-3, and 2-7, 5-2 are both cards powerfully facing down right. And so the hand clearly on average wants to go down right, and this way you can get rid of one of your redundant corners. I mentioned this in a couple videos recently, how I kind of play not to lose and some other people play to win. Vid definitely plays to win, and Vid plays for serious combo potential here. 5-4-4-5 now is a plus and 8. 5-6-4-2 now has a more secure plus and 6. Right? He is setting up serious combo synergy. And Deli goes for the kind of modernly popular thing, which I really like. Notice there's no plus wall this game. Of 6-3, 6-3, and 6, saying, I'm just going to take safety in 6. And yeah, you can go in 8. And okay, Vid probably should go in 8, something like 5-4-4-5 and 8, when Deli's 5-7-3-3, if it were to take back. Vid could take with 5-2-7-2 and be safe. Or Vid could keep 5-4-4-5 in his hand, play something else in 8, and 5-4-4-5 could potentially plus back. I think 8 should give Vid a pretty solid position. Like, if I was playing this game, I'd play 8, and Deli would play a tie. There are ties in 1, 3, and 7, all the normal squares. But, you know, you'd calculate it, and we'd probably play out a tie here. Vid, however, plays to win. And Vid goes for this really cool, complicated move. 5-2, 7-2, and 7. Setting up a plus in 4. And Deli cannot block 8 without flipping 5. Right? 5-7-3-3 or 3-3-4-7 obviously flip 5. Vid would play 5-4-4-5 and 4, comboing through 5, take 6, take 9, Vid wins. But now, because there's exactly a 2 facing to the right, Deli's 2-7-5-2, he can't even hide that in 8, that also flips 5. Deli cannot go 5. Now, if Deli tries to block 4, then Vid gets to go 8. Vid will get the complete bottom row. Vid wins. My first instinct for Deli was, okay, you probably go 3-3-4-7 and 3 there, and, you know, take safety where you can, but Vid just goes 8, and Vid wins. Specifically, if Deli goes 3, Vid goes 8, I think Deli has to go 2 there. 7 is safe to 4, so his only real option is in 2. Vid will always have a move in 4 that is safe. If Deli goes in 2 with 5-7-3-3, then Vid can play 7-1-4-5 in 4, and that's safe. And if Deli plays 2-7-5-2 in 2, capturing 5, Vid can recapture with 5-6-4-2, and that will be safe to Deli's remaining 5-7-3-3. 3 doesn't work either. Basically, everything in this position but the square Deli played loses. However, Deli finds the win. He plays in 1. And now, he has created a counter threat. Note, both his cards have access to it in 2. So Vid has these huge combo potential in 4 and 8. 5-4-4-5 is beautiful in both those squares. But Deli has set up exactly 1 square of counterplay. And that square turns out to be sufficient. Turns out that that plus last turn is sufficient here, because Deli can delay flipping 5. He still can't go in 4 or 8, but he can delay it long enough, he still wins. So for instance, I think the natural thing for Vid to do would be to block 2. But anything Vid blocks 2 with, Deli can take with 3-3-4-7 and 3, and Deli's just up 6-4, and Vid never gets his combos because Deli did not have to interact with 5. Vid goes in 3, trying to get Deli to interact with 5. If Deli interacts with 5, Vid has got this, right? Deli cannot go in 8 without flipping 5. He cannot go in 2 without flipping 5. Now, if you actually calculate all the lines, now that Deli has the counter combo in 2, he probably can go 8. But he definitely can't go 2. Vid is trying so hard to get Deli to flip 5. Deli, I think, elegantly picks the move that does not flip 5, the only move in the position that does not flip 5, and 2-7-5-2 gives the win at the end. Vid set up 2-7-5-2 to dominate in 8 intentionally, but now it means 2-7-5-2 does have captures at the end and will prove sufficient to win. I think this might be my favorite game of the month, and it goes... Well, my favorite's probably the one I played, but my favorite in a non-biased way. Because I think this speaks to how playing a really great game takes 2 players, right? Because 5-2-7-2 is this wonderfully creative move. Standard things to do are going 8 or going 3. But this is a move that sets up so much and creates so much danger in the position for both players. because it's conceding territory in 8, but it's also conceding, a same in 8. It's setting up combo potential for your opponent that you are trying to take advantage of. And that can lead to such a complex game. And this is such a scary position for Deli. But he does find the correct reply here and gets the win. And I like that my instinct was to play in 2 for Vid. My instinct was block the square the opponent has. But you can see the move in 3 continues to fit what he's trying to do. He's forcing Deli or trying to force Deli to flip 5. It's kind of got the feeling of some closed games where you really don't want to be the player that controls 5. There's just too much combo potential through it. And a lot of new players, when they start playing closed combo, are very cavalier about flipping 5 and about having cards weak to 5 and will just die to last turn combos. And then often go like, I'm so unlucky, I keep being hugely up and then losing on the last turn. And like, not actually being unlucky, right? It's actually, you are taking enormous risks, and being ahead in current score but down in combo potential is not what the game's about. So I thought Vid's move in 3, and he's lost at this point, but Vid's move in 3 continues to fit the pattern of I am playing for maximum combos, but combos both setting up for me, but also forcing you to flip cards that I need you to flip. And I thought that was a neat way of thinking. So those are my 10 games for early 2024. I'm curious what people's favorites were. The 3 that sort of stand out in my head to me are this win by Deli over Vid, my win over Addy, because I just think that was the craziest game I've played in ages, and Seto's win over Midas. That was the other one that really stood out to me. Also, if you think I missed some really useful games, maybe I'll make another of these videos in a few months, and I'd be happy to include something that I didn't include here. I did look at games from other players. I didn't just go, okay, what games did the big names play and how did they do? I looked around, but the thing is, most open games that are won by the big players for kind of obvious reasons, but also just because the weekly opens are a really, really strong field. And, if Deli, Seto, Akiyama are playing them, like, there's just not that many wins left for other players. So I think it made sense this happened. Some months, the players who played these games would be more diverse, but I think these games made sense to me as the most interesting picks. I also really tried to avoid games where no mistakes were made. A move may not be the most pressure possible, but if a move gave up a win or something, I tried to exclude those games again, with one exception for myself, which is a little bit bullshit, but we'll let it go. I'll let it go at least. So ended up with these 10. Hope you enjoyed them. And those are my picks for the 10 best games of the first, let's go, 77-ish, 78 days of 2024.